it's me again. This is my February reading wrap up part 1. I actually had a really good month in February. I gave 4 5-stars, 8 4-stars, yes, 8, 3 3-stars, 1 2-star and 0 1-stars, and I read 16 books total across both actual reading and then audiobooks. Fantastic month, I think. I have definitely read possibly 3 books this month that are going to go on my favourites of the year so far. Obviously we've only done January, February, but there's definitely 2 that I can't imagine anything beating. One of them, in fact the one maybe, and one of the definites is in this video, so keep watching. And the first one I'm going to tell you about is Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. This is the Zombie, but set in the time of the American Civil War. There's a lot of race issues that are dealt with in the book, or at least covered. So basically slavery is illegal, but there's like workarounds where if you pay the black people even just like a token amount, it's classed as a wage, and then they're classed as an employee as opposed to a slave, even though it's not a livable wage, and they get treated really badly. People are still beating the black employees, and so there's zombies, and they're not a massive part of the book. It's very much about the people and the politics of what's going on. But we have black girls who are sent to these kind of training schools, and they are taught to be attendants. And basically an attendant is like kind of like a servant to white women, but they would also accompany the white women to events and out and about when they're going places, so that if any zombies do attack, these black trained girls would use their fighting skills and protect the white women. So you can see why race is still a major issue within these books. This world, I loved it. I loved every minute of this book. It is absolutely fantastic. The characters are brilliant, and Jane is the main character, but we do get other characters where they're not just side characters. They are written really well, very rounded. We get some back history on them, and I just loved it. Absolutely loved it. Without a shadow of a doubt, I couldn't put the book down. For me, that's a bit of a chunker. I think it's 450 pages. I'm not used to reading things as big as that usually, and I finished it really quick. Definitely 5 stars. So that's one of the ones from February that I reckon is a definite for my favourites of the year list. And then the next one is the maybe one, and I am not going to show the cover of this one again. I said this in my TBR video that it's possibly something that people might freak out about when you hear what it is. So if you're interested, go and look it up yourself, but I'm not gonna like make people throw up just from watching this, hopefully. So it is called Scalp by Carver Pike. This is a very specific subgenre of horror. It's actually parasite horror. It is about killer head lice that drain. I'm trying to not make it too sickening. I don't think there's a way to do it. I'm just going to say it. Skip this. This is your warning now. Skip this if you don't want to listen to this gruesome bit. So these head lice, they jump from person to person, animal to animal, animal to people, etc. And they drain all the blood, firstly, from the new host. And one of them will burrow its way through the scalp into the brain. and then basically the person sort of becomes like a zombie, but not a zombie like the zombie fiction I normally read. It's like the person just becomes a host, and their entire mission then is finding new people to become more hosts so that the parasites can continue living and breeding. So with that bit over and done with, the story follows several different kind of groups of people or individuals across this one area initially. And so this outbreak happens, you see the initial like patient 0, and then how that kind of goes on and how it spreads across the town. And we've got a camp, you know, where kids go to like a summer camp type thing. There's a lot of kids from a high school there, and they all start getting attacked by these head lice. And yeah, I don't actually know if it's a YA, but it reads like a YA. And I have looked and I couldn't find anything definitive, but it does read like a YA. Very easily written, and I could just get into it. I didn't need massive amounts of concentration. And it just had that kind of slightly light feel to it than adult horror does. But it was absolutely fantastic. I completely loved it. I knew I would. I predicted it would be 5-star, and it was definitely 5-star. And the only reason it's a maybe on this list is because that author has written other very similar stuff, and I'm going to give those a try at some point in the future. So who knows which one's going to end up on the list by December. So I now want to go to the complete opposite side of the world, book-wise. And geographical wise, actually. I'm going to tell you about The Good Girls, An Ordinary Killing by Sonia Falero. This is a true crime that follows the story and the investigation, etc., of the deaths of 2 young Indian girls in a very, very remote village. The girls are called Padma and Lali. I think from memory, they're 16 and 14. They live in a village that is very, very remote and very basic, I want to say. So they don't even have running water. And the girls, they went to go to the toilet before retiring to bed for the night. And where their families went to the toilet was at the end of the fields that they owned. So they head out into the dark across these fields, go to the toilet and never return. The next morning, their bodies are found hanging from a tree in the middle of one of the fields. And obviously the family are absolutely heartbroken. They want some answers, and they believe that the 2 girls were killed for some kind of like honour killing, because there'd been rumours that people were unhappy with how the girls were behaving, and they didn't think that they were good, well-behaved traditional girls. And just the investigation and the autopsy and everything that came afterwards was just absolute chaos. It is no wonder that a lot of the crimes in that part of India went or go unsolved, because it was just an absolute farce. And for me, that was the shocking part of the book. And it just made me so angry, because if something like that happened over here, the families would get answers and they would get justice. But over there, these families were just left, and it was kind of like, well, you know, they died, they possibly deserved it, so what? And it's not like that at all, is it? And so it's difficult to read subject-wise, and it's also very difficult to read because I struggled with all the names of the people and the places. Obviously, they're unusual names to me, and the way that Indian society or these villages and their extended families are structured. There was just so many people that were mentioned, so many people that were interviewed for the book, that were involved in the case, all that kind of stuff. I just got a little lost. However, the overall, you know, story of what happened and how it is an important topic for us to be aware of was still fantastic. So I did give it 4 stars. I just wish that it had been written a little bit easier. I want to say like dumbed down a bit, just made a bit more, just easier to read, because I think this is something that lots of people should read about, but I think this book would probably put them off reading about it just because it was quite confusing. Next up is Black Widows by Kate Quinn. This is a thriller. It's a polygamous marriage thriller. And I was drawn to this because I absolutely loved The Wives by Taryn Fisher last year. So I thought this might be similar, and I really love this one as well. So we've got 3 wives, all married to the same husband, Blake. They are classed as like extreme Mormons or extreme LDS. And they live on this like land that's so remote that it isn't even on a map, and lots of people aren't even aware that there's a building out there. And so when Blake is found dead, the only obvious suspects are his 3 wives, and it's then up to the police to figure out which of the wives is the murderer. Now, these 3 wives, they are extremely different in the looks, the behaviours, the personality, and part of me thinks, was that done so that readers have an easier job of distinguishing between which wife is speaking, because it does swap between all their perspectives? However, it is done so well that you can believe that Blake would have been attracted to all 3 and would have been looking for something particular in all 3 of them, if that makes any sense. So it was just really, really interesting, really intriguing. You know, you kind of led down different paths of, well, this wife was keeping a secret, was it that? Well, this wife was a bit unreliable, was it that? You know, and it just was fantastic. I am not that religion, so I'm not Own Voices, and obviously I don't have a polygamous marriage, so again, not Own Voices. However, I have read, can't think where because I can't point you in that direction, but I remember reading that somebody said it was quite representative or very well written about those issues, and that they knew, or they could tell, that the author had done a lot of research prior to writing this book. So for me, I would say, based on that and the fact that the story itself felt believable, it didn't feel exaggerated, then I would say probably quite representative. And if that's something you're interested in, this is a fantastic thriller. It kept me guessing until the end, although almost all thrillers do that anyway. But yeah, it was really, really good, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. Right, I listened to the audiobook of Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter by Seth Grahame-Smith. I have previously read Pride, Prejudice and Zombies by this author and absolutely loved it, like incredible. But this one, I wanted to burst my own eardrums, to be honest. It was so boring. That I feel like I'm being super harsh, but seriously, it was, and I don't know if part of it was that it was an audio book and the narrator was very drony, you know, like meh, 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 and it was just like, oh my god. But whatever the issue was, I really, really did not enjoy this book, and part of me wishes that I was able to DNF it, but I'm not quite there yet with DNFs. So I finished it, I forced myself through it, and then I ended up giving it a 2-star. To be honest, it probably should have been a 1-star thinking about it now, but I was trying to be not as negative. But yeah, so it follows Abraham Lincoln, and obviously, and he discovers that vampires exist and that a vampire had killed a relative of his, and then he goes on the warpath and decides to become a vampire hunter, and he gets caught up in a lot of like vampire politics, let's just say, and he's put in some very dangerous positions. I don't know how to explain it. He just goes and hunts vampires basically, and then he becomes president. I think there was too much politics in this for me. I think I understand that these stories are supposed to be the main body of it is the original story, and then, you know, the extra elements like the zombies and the vampires are put in there. But there was just too much of the original info for me because I'm not into that stuff. So there wasn't enough vampires for it to make me interested. Next up, we've got The Cousins by Karen McManus. I listened to the audiobook of this one. So hard. I thought this would be better than I ended up thinking it was. I don't know what happened. I just thought it was okay, so it ended up being a 3 stars, which is really bizarre. Everybody's talking about this book at the moment, and part of me thinks that's because of the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge, because one of the prompts on there is to read a book that's got a family tree in it. And obviously, that's going to be somewhat difficult for people at the moment because of the current pandemic, and we're not always able to go to bookshops and search, or to the libraries, etc. So there's certain books that are doing the rounds that would fit that prompt, and this is one of them. So I thought I'd give it a go. So we follow these 3 cousins who their parents had been like kind of disinherited, disowned, whatever, by their mother, who is very rich, lives on this kind of private island that has got a tourist resort on it, that she basically owns all of the, you know, hotels and stuff like that. So these cousins get invited to spend a summer at this resort, and to like kind of have summer jobs there, but then to have the opportunity to get to know their grandmother, because they'd never met her. And so it sounds like quite intriguing, and then there's like this kind of mystery where the kids are trying to figure out why their parents were disowned, and I don't know, it just didn't sit right with me. I didn't fully enjoy it, but lots of other people have, so I wouldn't say don't read it. I would definitely recommend it to people to still give a go. Then we've got The Face of Evil by George Morris Diath. Don't know, sorry. This is a thriller, and it's just literally based around a woman who is like quite famous for being a true crime author. She has interviewed sociopaths and things like that. She decides that the subject of her next book is going to be a serial killer called Jason DeVere, and she sets up like all these appointments to go and interview him and things like that. However, he's not willing to give up his secrets. He is very well known for being quite manipulative and for bending people to his will and getting things out of people that they don't necessarily want to give. But Lydia herself, she is also known for being very ruthless, very manipulative, and she comes across as quite sociopathic, to be honest. Very, I want to say like emotionless, very harsh. She definitely is not a likeable character at all. So we've got this serial killer that is not likeable, obviously, and then we've got the author, who is the protagonist, and she's not likeable. So it did take me a little bit to get stuck into this book, because I just didn't like anybody and didn't really care at first. But once I got into it, it was very intriguing to see them play like these mind games with each other. They're each trying to out manipulate the other person, and then there's like kind of mysteries of where the other people went, who have been like attributed to Jason as the victims, but they were never actually found. So there's like a mystery there that Lydia goes digging into and things like that. And it was actually a very, very good thriller by the end of it. It's definitely one that if you give it a go, you need to stick to it for some time just to get the right kind of like feelings about the book. And so I ended up giving that a 4 stars. And the last one I'm going to tell you about today is Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. This book has been doing its rounds, and it's been quite hyped up. This is the story where A black teenage girl is babysitting a white little girl. They go to the supermarket and somebody in the supermarket accuses the black girl of kidnapping the white girl. And it becomes like a big racial issue. It highlights a lot of racist attitudes within society. And then the story goes on from there about how the family of the child deal with it, how the girl herself deals with being accused based on the fact that she's black. And, you know, it's... I wanted to love this book. I did. I've heard such great things about it, and I just thought it was average. I don't know why. I don't know what I was expecting. But yeah, it just did not hit the spot for some reason. But I think it is still one of those books that people should read because it does a lot of showing us how racism can be very subtle and how it can kind of be like an undercurrent within society that isn't massively obvious, that somebody wouldn't just call out. So even though I personally didn't enjoy the story, I thought the themes behind it were very interesting and quite eye-opening really. I just wasn't keen on the actual plot. But yeah, 3 stars, average for me. So thank you very much for watching this video. I will be back in a few days with hopefully a vlog of the first week of this month, and then I'll do the second wrap-up video for the rest of the books after that. So please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.